Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. All right. Now, you all are used to me saying this is somebody that should have come on the show a long time ago. And that's going to be uplifted a whole lot more because it's a lot of people that make Detroit so different. But the woman I have in studio today, as I always say, like my big homies, it's a lot of cool big homies, our elders, mentors, people you look up to that has kept me in the mix for so long, is actually the very first person to hire me for any of my marketing creative services, right? So we're talking about way back. I'm talking about 1990s back. So 1998. Black businesses are on parade, and I was hired to make a logo for that. So 1998 is like the first venture into providing services, creative services for clients, but so much more because obviously if that happens, that means the families know each other and everything. Very great friend of my late mother, Jan Frazier, and really friend of community, especially if you in certain communities, because politically, ever since I known her, she's always been engaged. And co-founder of Hood Research. Theo Broughton, how are you today?
I am fantastic and glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Definitely. You already hear the jazz stylings in voice already. And so much more. So Detroit is different. I'm usually on your show cutting up and carrying on about local politics or whatever be happening going on in my mind. But I thank you for that. But
yeah.
finally bringing you here to Detroit is different.
I'm looking forward to all of the times that we have had and will have together.
Definitely. So let's start this how we usually start this. You and your family's relationship in Detroit, where does it start? How do you all get here?
Oh, wow. I will just have to say that I ended up here because my parents were deceased. My sister had graduated from college and she got married, and her husband worked here for the big three. And I ended up, of course, living with her and being raised by her.
Where were you at before the move? Where were you from?
Well, actually, I was born in New York City.
Whereabouts in New York? What borough?
Manhattan.
Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
guessing Harlem then.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, black people in Harlem.
Right.
What do you remember about Harlem in that era, and what era are we talking?
Oh, wow. 40s. I think that one of the things I remember from childhood is that the friendship, no matter where our people lived, the friendship was there. The helpfulness was there. People shared. And, my father was a musician, very well-known musician. They tell me, and the camaraderie that you see, especially when his friends would come by the house and they would have jam sessions and all of that. And even if you were not in the music industry, whatever area you were in, be it education or the medical field, etc., the people that you made friends with were always there to support you in whatever you were doing.
So now I got to go a little bit deeper. What was your father's name? What did he play? And what style of music did he play?
Well, jazz, of course. They called him Joe Beaters. I have no idea where that slang name came from.
Joe Beaters? Hey, there you go.
I've been trying to get some research
Clarity.
on that and see if I can find it. He and his brother were twins, paternal twins. They both played saxophone.
Okay.
And my father actually played 6 instruments, but saxophone was the primarily one. He played with Duke Ellington, Joe Beatties, and he also traveled with Louis Armstrong. And one evening, now this is fast forwarding to my son, his family. and his son were on the internet, and my phone rang. So I answered the phone, and my grandson said, "Grandmother," I said, "Yeah, you okay?" "Yes, I'm okay." He was excited, you know. I said, "Well, what is it? What is it?" He says, "I see your father." I said, "You what?" He says, "I see your father on the internet." Now, mind you, we're in 2000, what was it, 2020, I think it was. And he actually found my father on the internet.
Hmm.
And it was a video of him in Germany with Louis Armstrong.
Hmm.
And I was happy, that he had a chance to find some history, and shocked to know that the internet goes back that far.
Definitely.
Mhm.
And I can only imagine when we think of that style of play. This is jazz, the Duke and Louis. So that means
Mhm.
that your that means your dad knew Count Basie and a lot of those
Yep,
players of that day.
Callaway. Oh yes,
So the relationship with jazz and you starts early, I'm guessing.
absolutely. And I would sit and listen when he practiced at home. And I think that's how I acquired a love for music. My mom played piano.
Hmm.
My grandmother played piano and the organ. So I was introduced to music, and to have an opportunity to hear them to practice, to play the songs that they loved. It just it trickles down, shall we say.
I love it. All right. And you come to Detroit. Definitely in the shadows of something so tough. So condolences. Both parents passed. That's I can only imagine so heavy at a younger age.
Yes.
And having that understanding of processing that. But you come to Detroit, stay with the older sister. What's your
Mhm.
immediate response to Detroit, and what era of Detroit do you move here?
Over in the area of Henry Ford Hospital, the
Okay.
original hospital, right in
So
that area.
so
Mm.
and what time? What era?
That was in the mid 50s.
So the mid 50s, you're here in the city of
Yes.
Detroit. That's like during the height of as much population as here, kind of.
Right.
What do you remember about Detroit upon coming?
Well, I remember that one, there was not a large population of African Americans in the area of Henry Ford Hospital, but they were moving into middle class because the big three auto industry was hiring them, and the neighborhood that we lived in was nice, was quiet, and I made a few friends there. The schools that were available did not have large populations of black children, but the friends that I made in the schools were lasting friends, and today I still hear from them. So that brought on the opportunity to meet, to greet, to learn, and to retain friendships. And sadly, it doesn't seem to happen the same way today.
Hmm.
You know,
So that neighborhood, what block? What block was that?
I was on Virginia Park.
You on VP? Okay.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So in from Virginia Park, and school age friends or friendships are developed, and staying there with older sister and her husband that's working within the big three. Um, where do you go to high school?
I went to a private high school, Catholic school,
Mm.
and St. Agnes was the first school that I attended. Matter of fact, where I graduated from. And the the school, the population was slowly building as far as African Americans, are concerned. But it was a small population, a small private school. As a matter of fact, when I graduated, there were 15 classmates that graduated.
Mm.
You hear today 600, 700, large graduating classes, but mine was small at that time.
And from there, where after high school, and you have roots in New York, what
Mhm.
keeps you in the Detroit area?
Well, I think that because of the family and friendships, it was good. My family, of course, was small with my parents being deceased. And I kept in touch. There were a few family members in New York, but then one moved to New Jersey, So we always kept in touch and would visit, back and forth. But I think that because of the family ties here is why I stayed here.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay. All right. After high school, what are you doing? What's going down?
Um, I went to Wayne State, but I didn't particularly like the kind of environment there. I'll tell you a little story. I remember being in the auditorium, and the professor, who was white, uh, looked around to his right, looked around to his left, and he says, "7 of you aren't going to get out of this class." And there happened to be 7 black students in that room. And so I thought, this is not the environment for me. So I ended up going to Mercy College, and it was a much better environment, you know.
So you uplift Wayne State, and we've heard from so many different stories about the relationship between Wayne State and the black community of Detroit.
Mm.
Not the shining examples of a great relationship.
That's true.
From Attorney Jeff Edison speaking about taking the legal exams there, from Shelley McIntosh talking about schooling there. I mean, even up to Jessica Care Moore in the 90s,
Hmm.
protesting against David Adamany because he was one of those school presidents that was against Martin Luther King Day happening. So that was like in the 90s, Wayne State. And also, Daryl Dawsey and Ken Cockrell Jr. with Ken Cockrell Sr. And so many others, Shoshana Shakur and many others, protesting for the Africana Studies Department to exist there at Wayne State. The
Oh yeah.
relationship between Wayne State and the black community has not been one of the most one of the best ones. And I
Hmm.
often uplift this when I speak to this as well, because relationship between many American institutions and black communities have not been peaceful either. But Mercy, you go to Mercy. What do you take up and study at Mercy,
Well,
and what was that experience like?
I was interested in psychology,
Hmm.
and I was also interested in interior decorating.
Hmm.
And so I just followed in that. I've not wanted to be a professional singer. I just love to sing, and so I didn't pursue that, in college at all. I think it's a I don't know, maybe a natural gift, maybe, and because of all of the background music in the family, I just enjoyed it,
Mhm.
So that's what I enjoyed doing, and mostly what I was interested in.
So Mercy, you go to Mercy for psychology. You get out of there, and for psychology, interior design. Still in the city. What's happening in life at the time?
Well, during that, the family went to California for an opportunity, perhaps to relocate out there. Went
Whereabouts?
to Oakland, California.
Another chocolate city.
Right, right.
There we go.
Uh-huh. And it didn't work out because of my sister had a medical challenge.
Hmm.
So we ended up back here. And my classmate was here. And of course, he was happy that I returned. And we ended up being in love with each other. We got married.
Hmm.
And so I was off starting a new life
Okay.
here in Detroit.
Okay. So yeah, at first he was thinking, "Oh man, I messed up." He was thinking, "Oh, where? I'll I may got it some time." Then he looked up and it's like, "I'm going to Oakland." It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
right. Right.
that's like a romantic comedy or a romance movie for real, for real. Then you end up
Hey.
coming back. Okay. Okay. And
Yeah, he was in shock. We had another friend here, and so because I went over, to visit her and her mom and dad, and so she called him to tell him that I was back in town, right? So he came over to her house, and when I walked in, he looked up. It's like that's when he found out I was back, and he was in shock too.
hmm,
But anyway, it worked out well, and we ended up after a little time of being married, and we now have 3 children. He's deceased, I might add.
condolences.
Yes, thank you. And we had 3 children, and then one foster son. That's a story in itself because we had 2 daughters and one son. And the one son, as he's coming up, I want a brother. So we're like, well, if we have a brother for you, he'll be so much younger. Hmm. He's like 8 years old. We're talking about this. I haven't figured that one out. So time goes on, and he still wants a brother. So now he's about 13 years old or 14 or so. And he bonds with this young man around the same age. And one day he comes into the kitchen and he says, "Mom," I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, can Damon come and live with us?" I said, "Well, did you ask your father?" No. I said, "Well, ask your father." He says, "Well, he would want to come and live with us." And I said, "Well, why do you say that?" He said, "Because he's with his grandmother and actually he would be at our house, I think, just as much as his grandmother's.
Mm.
You look up at the dinner table and there he is,
Hmm.
and they were always doing projects together at school. So he went to his father and he said, "Can Damon come and stay with us?" And he says, "Well, what about his mother and father?" He said, "Well, I don't think they would mind because he's never there. He's with his grandmother." So my husband and I went out to meet his mother. His mother and father were divorced. The father and the mother had remarried and they had children each with a new marriage and all. And they really didn't have an objection to him being with us. So we had him to come and stay, and Chris was happy because he now has a brother. You know,
Mm.
the 2 girls have each other. 2 sisters together. Now I got a brother.
Hmm.
And they really got along famously. And our family always had projects going on. We ran a haunted house for about 5 years because he and his sister went out to volunteer in Damon into the suburban communities where they ran a haunted
Wait,
house.
I want to pause you there
Sure,
because I
sure.
have a couple other questions even
Sure, go ahead.
about that process. And
Mhm.
first off, I tip my hat to the the humility and benevolence that both of you all shared to welcome another child into the home from the premise of a friendship from your son Chris. Um, you can check the archives of Detroit is Different, and here's some stories with Chris being featured on Detroit is Different as well. And the question that I have is more around at that time, just like in the neighborhood. What neighborhoods are you do you stay at the time? Um, how many children are on the block? Like, what's the tone of where you all are at the time?
Well, the tone at our house was always full of laughter, cheer, and children who went to school with my son and daughters.
Mm-hmm.
My husband was ill for quite a long time.
Mm.
However, he worked with Eddie Ray, who was a very well known basketball coach. And my husband was assistant basketball coach for him. My youngest daughter was a cheerleader on the team that they coached. My oldest daughter was a cheerleader for the Detroit Pistons,
Mm.
and we were always doing community activities with the children.
What neighborhood?
Uh, well, on the west side, we were in the area of McKenzie High School, even though they didn't attend McKenzie, and the opportunity for them to meet students that they went to school with, and that they are all would come to our house. I'd make a big pot of chili, spaghetti, what have you. They would get sides from school because the school had plays, and they their friends wanted to be in the play. They'd all sit in the middle of the living room floor, and they would practice their parts, and then they'd go and they'd try out for the play, and be so excited that they had an opportunity to do that. And my son did magic from the time he was about 8 years old. And of course, they had talent shows at the school. So he and his sister became very well known because of that. And it was, I guess, part of the reason why I was motivated to be involved in the community. It gives our young people a chance to learn to collaborate with one another, to support one another, to grow into adulthood caring about the community in which they live.
So now the only other question I got is, what are you doing for work at the time? And then we can go back to the haunted house.
Hmm. At that time, I think that I was working in the bank. That's what I was doing at that time,
Okay.
and it, it it gave me an opportunity to teach, the young people about finances as well. And in the meantime, the time off was working with them and giving them opportunities to learn about new ideas, to suggest new ideas. What did you want to do? As an example, I was saying that we ran a haunted house for 5 years, and when that was over, we would take the participants to Yates Cider Mill, the oldest cider mill in the state of Michigan. And out there, they touch football. They would go on a tour of the mill. And it was just something else they could learn. They could learn about the state in which they live. They could learn about each other. And they could learn about working together and coming up with other ideas that would um, cause them to mature.
I want you to tell that full haunted house story because I've heard it before, but it's layers to it.
Well, our son and daughter would volunteer out in the suburbs. And so Chris came one day and says, Mom, I said, yeah. He said, I like working in the haunted house, but we need to have one in our community for everybody in our community. I said, yeah, that would be nice. He says, well, why don't we do a haunted house? I said, Chris, I don't know anything about running a haunted house. He says, well, I do. I do. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go. with another idea from Christopher Broughton. So
Mm-hmm.
we got the ideas together, and he and his sister talked to their friends and classmates, schoolmates, etc., and told them what they wanted to do. And I talked to friends of mine who were electricians and some worked for the city, etc., so that we could find a location. And found this house at 99 Garfield. That was one of the locations that we used. And friends of mine would go through and they'd string up what I call a construction lighting system. It's a long cord with sockets on it, and you only have the lights on to set up the various fright sites. So Chris had us all working on that. And we started getting the word out, putting flyers out, and even one of the TV stations came and filmed it. People were wrapped around the block,
Hmm.
and I was surprised. I didn't know what kind of response we would get, but they were literally wrapped around the block. So we had 10 people at a time to go through the haunted house. This place was 3 stories tall and an attic that I guess people stayed in at one time.
Mm-hmm.
It also had a brick building built right up to the side of the house. And I found out later because it was a place for numbers. They played the numbers, street numbers. What is called today the lottery after the legislators took it away from those here in the city of Detroit who ran the street numbers. And it had 2 floors,
Hmm.
no elevator, no staircase. The only way to get to the second floor of this place was to go into 99 Garfield. You go up to the second floor, then you could go in. And what that did was kept them safe from being, um, I guess you would say, tiptoed up on by the police to get them. So and they had an opportunity to run out in the 99 Garfield out of the back door and onto the next street. So anyway, my friends went through the place and set up the fright sites and all. And there was one room in the front where those who were going through the haunted house would await because we did 10 at a time. My husband had on his outfit to look like a vampire,
Mm-hmm.
what the teeth kids used to buy in the penny candy store, the little wax teeth and the 2 fangs
Yeah.
would hang out. And so this was this young couple, young guy and girl, who was standing at the end of the line waiting to go through the haunted house. They were holding hands, so they let go of hands for a minute, and then she reached for his hand again. And my husband had fake hair glued to the back of his head. And he reached his hand out and she touched his head, turned around and saw him. And she let out the loudest scream. And everybody didn't know what. And her boyfriend is like, what? And he turned around and saw my husband. So everybody was running through the haunted house. And we had a lot of successful fright sites. Fright sites, I must tell you. It was a lot of fun. And they always looked forward after the week was over to go out to the cider.
So, with that, now I want to fast forward
Mhm.
in the story to our connection and our meeting. But
Mhm.
even before we get to our meeting, I can say even to this day, as like I picked Theo up and I'm dropping Theo off to his 2 meetings, you are so active, involved in community and works, still being creative with singing still, and the age is not slowing you down a bit, or just the fact that now it's been more empowered. Your vision and where things stand there. You're not limiting yourself to what you can and cannot do.
That's correct.
So I wanted to just get a little bit more of just how do you stay empowered, and how did you prepare yourself over the years, with with knowing that you're gonna approach the world so different because of vision.
You know, I had never saw it as a limitation.
Mm.
My husband was ill after having an accident on his job, and there was a time I of course had to take care of him, but we both kept going, even though he was ill. He kept working with Eddie Ray as a basketball coach, and we kept the children involved because you don't want your children to think, I can't do this because daddy's sick, or I can't do this because mom is sick, you know. And I see um, the vision limitation as something that I have to address. I have to determine how to live with it, how to get around it, and not just sit in a room and say, "Oh, woe is me." I'm not a "oh, woe is me" kind of person. So I would continue going to school events while the children were in school, and I would find out about the activities that were going on in the community because you stay vibrant, you stay young, you stay healthy by participating in the life that's going on around you. And that's what I did. And so I met people as I went along. And I met a friend, Abe Cherry, who owned a beer and wine business. And he asked me about getting involved in politics. I said, well, that'd be interesting. He introduced me to Barbara Rose Collins, who, as you know, was a city council member. She was in Congress, and I would take the whole family, and we would sit. At that time, you didn't have computers to do a lot of your work, so you had to fold literature, uh, put literature in the envelopes, and you had to separate it and put it in sleeves so that you could take it to the post office and it would get to the correct zip code. And the children learned that. I learned that. And we enjoyed being involved in it, going door to door, meeting the neighbors around. And that was another thing that I learned about. And in being involved in politics, you network. And I taught our children about networking. And to this day, they do the same thing. They get involved in projects, they learn about different people, and they meet people who become good friends of theirs. So, this is the kind of thing that makes life worth living.
So, with that, now I guess let's jump right on into the introduction. I meet you through Hood Research,
Mhm.
and my parents at the time are getting more involved politically, especially with the Keep the Vote No Takeover movement
Mhm.
at the time, with
Mm.
the emergency management that occupies not just the Detroit Public Schools, but
Right.
the bonded money connected to and supported by all Detroit voters for Detroit Public Schools.
Right.
And before that, even, you're big into these discussions. I remember Hood Research, the discussion. My father bought a copy of Black Labor, White Wealth from the Shrine of Black Madonna. I'm young, I'm thumbing through a little bit of that, and Dr. Claud Anderson.
Mhm.
Uh, and at the time, I believe it was Bob Law.
Yeah.
And you host a forum where Bob Law, Claude Anderson, Leonard Jeffries, yourself, and others are talking about economic empowerment.
Yes, I believe that that was the time that we had it at Wayne State University,
Yes.
and it was very successful. But before I tell you about how we moved from there to Wayne County Community College, which is the love of my life, um, I met Reggie Crawford, who was the co-founder of Hood Research. He too was going to community meetings and all, and we'd end up at the various locations and working with Barbara Rose Collins and the various other elected officials on their campaigns. And he and his wife, Mary, would come in. We'd all, stuff envelopes, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, a friend of ours said, "You need to register that." I said, "Register what?" He said, "Hood Research." I said, "Oh, well, why do you say that?" He says, "Because somebody might would take that." What we were really called was the In the Hood Research Department. That's what a
Hilarious.
lot of people called us. I said, okay. So Reggie and I talked about it. So Reggie Crawford and I went down to, it was a city county building at that time. And we went to the second floor, DBA. We get an application. We step over to the side. We fill out the application, came back and gave it to the young clerk. She looked at it. He says, "I can't get all this on here." We said, "What?" "They're in the Hood Research Department."
Hilarious.
And so she hands us the paper back. We says, "Oh no, what do we do now?" So we went over the application and well, we just have to shorten it, I guess. So we shortened it to Hood Research
Hmm.
and took it back, and that's how we became Hood Research.
Hmm.
And our friend was right; somebody was trying to steal the name, but anyway, we continued on and started having our community meetings at different locations. And Wayne State was the place where we had the program with those in attendance that you just listed a few moments ago. But the issue was parking was horrible at Wayne State. And there were some participants who came to the event and they were just complaining because the parking was bad and all of this. So we started looking around for someplace else to have our gatherings. And we finally found Wayne County Community College. And I've got to tell you that Dr. Curtis L. Ivory is the most wonderful man on the planet. He welcomed us, and I met the president of the what is now the Northwest Campus on Outer Drive. Previously, it was located on Joy Road in Greenfield. And Dr. Ivory was considering buying that location, but the fast food restaurant didn't want to sell because he felt that he had a built-in customer base, which in a way he did. So, well, Dr. Ivory, that's okay. So he bought the place on the
Outer Drive.
northwest corner of Outer Drive and the Southfield Freeway, yes. And he has welcomed the community. He provides free classes for people who are over 60 years of age, and he gives free computer classes, which is very important. Hood Research gave free computer classes, and your father participated and taught the participants. Sometimes we'd have 40 people in the room.
Mhm.
We had 22 computers in the
Very,
room.
very much so. And even designed the drums application back then. I don't know if people remember drums. It was early, what is it, like bulletin board, message board, where a lot of information would go through drums. I definitely believe drums was very much responsible for the firing of Jerry Oliver, past police commissioner, if you all can go through the histories of the city of Detroit.
Oh, yes, yes. We also back then had drum beat commentary too with Jim Ingram. That was one of the highlights of this community as well, because there were so many people who were sincere and serious
Mhm.
with their sincerity, and they
And
would get involved. That's what's important, being involved.
and you stayed involved, and Hood researchers stayed involved.
Oh,
What has
yes.
been this journey now for
Well,
decades, as far as what have you seen change
we
in
got
the local political landscape?
well, one we got to the point where we had a program on the radio. We were at DPS, um, and we did a radio program. What happened? A friend of mine asked me to come on with her, and I said, okay. So that sounds like it would be fruitful. So I started going and participating on her talk show. And at that time, the 90.9 FM was the station. Today, I mean, people know it as
It's a classical station,
in
but
the day and
it's still
jazz.
owned as it's still an entity owned by Detroit Public Schools and
Yeah.
shared with other things in the trust, but it's still owned by
Mm,
Detroit Public Schools because I was one of the uh, I was the last student that produced their own show on 90.9.
FM. Mm-hmm.
And you all see how old
Yeah.
I am, so
Yeah.
it's been a minute.
And now they have jazz at night, so it's in the morning and it goes what till 7, and then jazz after that.
Mhm.
But I was on a program with her, and there was some issues there, and so they whatever it was, she left. But in the meantime, I was asked to do a show there, so I started doing a show at that station. And there were some people over at WHBR's station, which was on Woodward and Island Park at that time, and they wanted me to come on there. Um, I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." So, so I got a phone call from the medium painter, and he wanted to help. I said, "Well, sure, that sounds like a good idea to me." And so we started doing the show together at 90.9 FM DPS. And then we were asked to do this radio show at WHBR. So we would go to both locations and enjoyed it very much. Then we were asked to do television, WHBR television. And we've been doing that. Oh, goodness. I know it's been 20 years.
Mhm.
And for a while there, we did radio and TV
Mm.
and had fun. And I especially enjoyed interviewing the students.
So that's where like in this time, and I love you uplifted that story, and shout out to RJ, HT, and everybody at
WHBR.
HPR and what they've done, TV 20, when it comes to black storytelling, giving platforms for so many. Rest in peace, like Brenda Perryman,
Right.
my godmother Joanne Watson, and so many others. Mr. Harrison, rest in peace,
Richard Harrison, yes.
and many others.
Mm.
The scope that you've seen, what have you seen change in these years? Just about the people, about the culture, about the city.
Well, I have been saddened about the changes because when you see the kind of attitude that people have, our young people, they don't have the same kind of interest in building a community, the same kind of interest in working with others in the community. It seems that there's a lot of selfish attitudes floating around. And I gotta say, in my opinion, that the wording in some of the songs that are out now, people say, well, no, you can't blame it on the music, can't blame it on the lyrics. And I think you can. I really do. Because if little ones are hearing, their minds are blank slates. And they come away with thinking that what they hear in a song and lyrics is okay, then they want to follow that. And that's not good. It doesn't work. And so I know that there's positive lyric. I know for a fact that, but that doesn't get played on the radio. doesn't get played in a lot of the movies, doesn't get played in a lot of places where it should. However, we have to continue to encourage the young people to know that there is a better way. And yes, the negative music, negative movies, negative books, etc., are out there, but you want to live a better life.
So that's talking to the young people. And I love you shared that message. I'm more so speaking from a lot of the space where people see you interact, and that's with politics. What has politically changed, or has there been changes that you've witnessed in the time when you're starting this engagement with the Barbara Rose Collins before it's an organization till now?
Well, I think now that money makes more of a difference than it should, because you find that there are people who get into office and they decide they want to stay in office. So they make concessions. How, okay, you want me to vote for this? I'm looking to move up to another position where the paycheck may be a little, higher. And if you want me to vote for that, now you have to work with me in a campaign. The person wants the vote or wants the contract or whatever it is that they're seeking, and the politician gets the money, etc., and they go on so that they can move forward. You know, in our city in particular, I look at the elected officials on all of the levels. As we know, the highest level in the United States is gripped by a person who has or seems to have all the money, marbles, and chalk. And he's telling the elected president what to do. Also, power rears its ugly head. And there's a person that is admired by the president. And he admires him so much that whatever he says, the president wants to do. But when I think about the local elected officials and all of the perks that they have, and if they're afraid of not getting reelected, they say, well, I must vote for XYZ, or I may not get reelected next time. And that's not the way to look at it, because if a person is doing their best, is keeping close contact with those who voted for them, then they don't have to worry about that.
So now I have to ask, with these changes, what do you see community doing to engage so that we can find more of that unity, more of those relationships, more of those bonds?
Well,
What's the response you think community can take
mm, well, I
at a
think
time like now?
well, what I think is happening here on the federal level, our people are realizing is, oh, this is not happening to them over there. This is happening to me. My price of eggs are just shooting out of sight. Wait a minute. I wasn't told that inflation was going to be like this. Inflation was supposed to go away. It is still here. Oh, well, I better pay more attention to how I should get involved in politics, how I should be involved in what's going on with everyone and not just me. So I find now that there are more residents in this country who are concerned about finding all of the information, researching, and deciding what would be best for them, what would be best for their families, what would be best for their neighbors and friends. It's making a difference, but it's slow. And I noticed that protesting is going on not just in my neighborhood or my city, it's going on around the world. So people are waking up and I'm very pleased to know that they're waking it up.
Okay. With that being said, we're going to close out. Classic Detroit is different questions. So the first one, you're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
Well, I would. One of my favorite songs is "I Believe in You and Me" by the Four Tops. Um, and the second song, hmm, I think it's the one that Quincy Jones did when he had all of the artists come to his studio. He told them, leave your attitude outside the studio. Come on in, and he did. What is this song? Is it
We Are the World?
World?
Okay. Why those 2 songs?
Well, one, the song that Quincy Jones worked on, put together, etc., was to show people throughout the world that we need each other. And personally, I Believe in You and Me is a song that is to bring man and woman together so that they know that they believe in working together with each other to have a more harmonious relationship.
Okay. Last question. Being an outsider, even though you've been here more than a lifetime,
Yes.
but it's always this question.
What?
An alien comes down
Uh-oh.
to Earth, stops at your house,
Uh-oh.
knocks on the door and says, Theo, I'm here to hang out. What place should I go to get the Detroit experience? Where are you and the alien going?
Ooh, wow. Let's see. Well, there are a number of places depending what you want. For atmosphere, I think Bert's is a place.
Okay.
Bert has been there. Oh man, double lifetime, shall we say?
Definitely.
Eastern Market.
Yes.
And Thursday night was the night for jazz. Each night was a different genre of music.
Mm-hmm.
But Thursday night was a night for jazz. And when the entertainers would come to town and they were finished, you know where they would come? To Bert's, right there on Russell Street at Eastern Market. And one night I was on stage singing.
Mm-hmm.
And geez, Welcome Back Carter, the actor on Welcome Back Carter, came into Bert's. And he actually came in to pick up an order. He was here in Detroit performing, and he knew about Bert's because he hadn't been here a number of times. And he came in, but I couldn't say anything. Uh, because he was at the counter, and what I would have done, I would have introduced him to the people in the audience that he was there,
Yeah.
and he happens to be a friend of my son, and so when I got off stage, I told Cheryl Coleman, the daughter of Mr. Coleman. He had a music school on the West Grand Boulevard there, and he was the head of music at the church right there on Grand River and West Grand Boulevard.
Okay.
And so anyway, she was there as well. She saw him, and she says, "I didn't know what to say. I couldn't come up on the stage."
There you go.
Anyway, so he was gone. Clarence Carter would come down. I mean, there were so many entertainers. Well, just come to Bert's.
Definitely.
So,
So I'm with it. You and ET are kicking it in Bert's. I'm with the vision. I'm pretty sure you're gonna get some barbecue as well.
yes.
So with that, thank you so much, Theo. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Love you and the family.
Love you too. Peace.
Peace.